Hey there, little adventurers. Have you ever been fishing? You know, where you sit by the water, dangle a wiggly worm on a line, and wait for a big, shiny fish to bite. Well, a little bear named Barnaby loved fishing more than anything, more than honey-drizzled pancakes. And believe me, that's saying a lot. One sunny Saturday morning, Barnaby woke up before the sun had even stretched its big, fiery arms across the sky. Today's the day, he whispered to his rubber ducky Squeaky. I can feel it in my furry toes. I'm gonna catch the great glimmerfin. Now the great glimmerfin was a legend in Whispering Creek, a fish so big they said it had scales like silver coins and a tail that shimmered with all the colors of the rainbow. Every creature who'd ever held a fishing rod dreamed of catching it. So Barnaby packed his favorite fishing rod, a jar of the juiciest, wiggliest worms he could find, and a thermos of hot cocoa. He tiptoed out of his cozy cottage, down the path, and found the perfect spot under a big, shady willow tree. Cast his line with the perfect swoosh and a happy
Water.
He waited and he waited and he waited some more. The sun climbed higher, the birds sang their lunchtime songs, and Barnaby started to get a little sleepy. His head nodded and he almost dropped his rod, when suddenly, tap, tap, tap! Barnaby's eyes snapped open. Whoa, he yelped. The end of his fishing rod was bent into a perfect U shape. This was it. This had to be the great glimmerfin. It was pulling so hard, Barnaby had to dig his little bare claws into the soft earth to keep from being pulled in. I've got you, he puffed, reeling and reeling with all his might. His arms ached, his fur was spattered with mud, but he was so excited. He could already imagine showing everyone his amazing catch. He gave one final mighty heave. Something huge and dark flew out of the water and landed on the bank right next to him. Barnaby blinked, he rubbed his eyes, he looked again. It wasn't a fish, it wasn't shiny, it didn't have scales like silver coins. It was a boot. But it wasn't just any boot, it was the biggest, floppiest, most ridiculously enormous boot Barnaby had ever seen. It was dark green, covered in slimy moss, and had a big, silly-looking hole in the toe. It looked like a boot that a giant might have lost while wading through the creek. Barnaby stared at the boot stared back. Well, not really, but it felt like it. He poked it with his paw. Squish! A little frog hopped out of the hole in the toe. Barnaby sat down with the thump. He had pulled and tugged and strained and fought for an old stinky boot. He felt a little giggle bubble up, then another. Soon he was rolling on the grass, laughing his furry head off. I caught the great boot fin, he giggled to himself just then. A little fish with shimmering, rainbow-colored scales poked its head out of the water. It was the great glimmerfin. It looked at Barnaby, then at the giant boot, and then it did something very strange. It winked, then with a flick of its magnificent tail, it disappeared back into the deep. Barnaby stopped laughing and just smiled. Maybe he didn't catch the fish he wanted, but he had a much funnier story to tell. He decided the boot was his trophy. He filled it with wild flowers and dragged it all the way home. And from that day on, whenever anyone asked Barnaby about his greatest catch, he wouldn't talk about a fish. He'd point to the giant boot in his garden, now a beautiful flower pot, and say, "That, my friend, is the story of the great boot fin."